Instruction, golf news, equipment, travel, interviews, course profiles, and more. Your weekly fix of all things golf is about to begin. It's the Flagstick Podcast with your hosts, Jeff Botter and Scott McLeod.
All right, well, welcome to the Flagstick Podcast. I'm Jeff Botter, and this is Scott McLeod. And the podcast this week is brought to you by our good friends. Let me get through this. Our good friends at Golf PEI. Golf Prince Edward Island is a premier Canadian golf destination boasting the most number of golf courses per capita in the country. With over 400 fairways closer than you can imagine, top-tier accommodations, and exquisite culinary experiences, it is the best golf vacation you will ever book. So book your golf vacations at golfpei.ca. Yes, of course, we want you to follow us across all social media networks, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. Please subscribe to Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. Do not forget the YouTube channel. Like us and click the notification bell. Make sure that you never miss a single episode of anything that we put up there, this podcast or anything else for that matter. Okay, let's get it out of the way. For those that are watching on YouTube, yes, I have a creative beard mustache experience going on here. For our wonderful Canadian and I guess our worldwide fans, but our Canadian fans, it is hockey playoff season. I am a hockey coach, and I am doing this said odd mustache beard combination for the benefit of the 13, 14-year-old hockey players that I coach as we enter into the playoffs. And, of course, come off of a regular season championship title, but it's regular season. Good on them. Now it's time for the playoffs.
Yeah, as you know,
it's kind of cool because I get to do this.
Oh God! As you know, being a Capitals fan, it's not over after you win the season.
That is really, really cold right there. No,
thank you.
That cuts deep. That cuts really, really deep. Thank you for that. Yeah. So this show.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not, most professional sports are character driven, if you will. A lot of personalities out there. Mm-hmm. So as much as we like to focus on the good players and the high level of performance, sometimes we perceive these professionals as heroes and villains.
Yes.
And sometimes they perceive themselves as heroes and villains too, or do their darndest to make sure that they are categorized as one or the other. Mm-hmm. So we thought this would be a kind of a cool topic to get into this week. So we're going to discuss the concept of who might sit in each of these categories. Our opinion, which might not, they might look at them as villains, and you might look at that villain as a hero. So,
and we'll discuss why that is probably
exactly, and if any of them have flipped over the years too.
Yeah,
because there are a few that were perceived most of their career as fan favorites that are probably most fans would throw.
Yeah, and there's other ones that are divisive. I mean, you bat it around all the time. Somebody loves somebody doesn't love somebody, and there's particular reasons why. So that's part of the reason.
There's a couple that I don't think anybody would disagree on.
Maybe their moms.
You never know. Okay, so let's get down to this. Get this conversation started on the front nine. Front nine is presented by Metcalf Golf Club, a natural setting, a pleasant challenge. Now is the best time to be thinking about next season. Or this season coming. Game packages for everyone, 10, 20s, and 30-round passes are always available online. And, of course, don't forget to get on the wait list for memberships at Metcalf. Get signed up for leagues. To do that, visit metcalfgolf.com and stay in touch with the golf savings.
Got it. Hard to believe. Like literally, we're February now, and
I know, and we're supposed to get like 10 to 15 today, as far as I know. So I know, but so it's like you feel like it's got to be near the end. It's February, but it is still early February, and
It is.
it's not
Yeah.
uncommon to still have snow in March.
Yeah.
In fact, it is common to still have snow in March. So I'm not getting ahead of myself just yet here.
No, I hopefully the really, really cold days go. I mean, last week was pretty rough. I know I had to end up putting a new battery in a car, and it's like minus 25 out, and like you just
Did
don't
you
want
do
to
it
go
yourself?
anywhere. I did not. I did not.
I'm so
That's what
disappointed.
that's why I'm here right now. Look, I'm good at some things, but I also admit when I'm not good at something and don't take it on and leave it to an expert. So it's just much easier.
That's why I have a 20-year-old son
Well,
that
there you
can
go.
do that stuff for me.
Yeah. Well, our daughter was home last week, but I wasn't going to ask her to change a battery in a car. So she's a kinesiology student, not a mechanic. So
Okay.
anyhow,
Before we get into the heroes and villains topic, I think the best way to do is we'll try to split it up sort of here, villains in the front nine, and then we'll get into heroes in the back nine, maybe depending on the crossover there. But
sure.
I wanted to bring up because it's kind of an interesting topic before we get into it.
Yes.
This weekend, the Waste Management,
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the most exciting tournaments to watch as far as bits and pieces of it. The fan base that's involved
Mm-hmm.
in it kind of is adds to the element of excitement. However, it's an interesting question to raise at some point, and I think we might do a show on this sort of topic. Is the fan involvement? How involved do we want the fans to be?
Sure.
How big do we want that? You talk about growing the
Well,
game
it's kind of
versus shrinking the game.
yeah, but it's where's the line, right? Where's the
Yeah,
line?
that's what I was looking at, and what occurred with respect to Hideki Matsuyama on the weekend and the fan chirping, and
Mm-hmm.
it's. And then earlier on, there's a internet media guy or internet
Mm-hmm.
social media
Yeah,
guy, Jack Dougherty, and
yeah,
who got
Mackenzie
ejected,
Hughes. Yep.
from the event and has been banned from future PGA Tour events because of paying money to people to basically heckle like Happy Gilmore style. It's like, how much of that do we want out? How much of that fan involvement, the chirping, the screaming, the yelling, the throwing the beer on the hole, like how much of that do we want in? How much of that do we want out? Did that affect Hideki's ability to make that putt? It didn't happen while he was making the stroke. He did back off. However, golf is a very mental and very focused game, and once you're kind of in your element to make a putt or make a swing, and then that you have to back off because of that, and you have to reset it, and maybe you don't quite get into the right space. That's the question, maybe for another day. I just wanted to bring it up because it's so recent, but
Mm-hmm.
these players are professionals. They should be able to kind of reset themselves and then go, and it shouldn't have any effect on them. But does it matter if it has an effect on them or not? Are we allowing too much? We complain about live golf being this, Happy Gilmore style thing where everybody's yelling and screaming and the loud music and all this stuff. And we complain about that, yet really what happens at a tournament like Waste Management, especially on the stadium hole, we'll call it. It's very loud and very, and it doesn't really get quiet when they're hitting. There's a lot of buzz going. It is a very loud hole to play. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
and I think the other element, again, we can have a future episode where we'll talk all about
yeah,
it. We get into the element too of thinking like things like betting now, and betting is so active, especially among certain demographics. And are things happening to affect the outcome of the tournament that are relative to people gambling and so forth? So again, yeah, a lot of elements to discuss in there, a lot of things that
topic for another day for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Just
but
we're talking about heroes and villains, and
Yes.
the
Yeah,
third villain in all of this, and the third hero
Yeah.
potentially is the fans. The fans
Sure.
can
Of
lift you
course.
up. The fans can also have
Yep.
an effect and a distraction. So love them or
Yep.
hate them kind of thing. Okay.
Yep.
Let's put
Exactly.
that aside.
Sure.
Reminder, everybody, Flagstick Open coming up May 16th, 17th, presented by TaylorMade Golf and Adidas, Golf Canada at Equinel. There's still, I just noticed 2 entries just came in.
Okay.
There's still a few spots left available in the original 120, but don't let that stop you. Get on the waiting list, please, and get your registrations in soon because as far away as it seems, it'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
Okay, heroes and villains.
Yeah.
Um, I guess before we really get into talking about specific players, we should kind of,
Yeah.
define sort of if we
Set the
need
table.
heroes and villains, is it necessary to like and dislike players? Should we focus on their scores and abilities as players, or, um, you know, do we need good guys and bad guys?
Yeah, well, I think when you deal with it, I mean, golf is not exclusive in this. When we talk about sports and anything that we sort of are interested in, and that's the way sports are in a lot of ways. They're a theater kind of played out on grass. In a lot of cases, that we talk about books and heroes and villains and movies and so forth, and eh, things tend to be more compelling, and we'll say why in a minute, but without the good guy to root for, the bad guy to root against. Does golf just become a group of millionaires hitting white balls in the woods? I mean, we sort of have to, everything's character driven, right? And I mean, that's what we see in sports, whether it's F1, whether it's hockey, whether you name it, and we see that aspect of it. But it's wondering why that dynamic sort of takes place. And we think about our lives. I mean, humans are biologically wired for storytelling, right? So we see those names up there and we see those players, whether it's a Rory or a Patrick Reed, and that starts to become the narrative, right? And I think in a couple of things, when it boils down to it, in a lot of cases, I mean, the hero is the person that we sort of project our values onto. It's the person that does the hard work, and they're humble and they're grateful. They become the person that we sort of want to be, or at least some people want to be, right?
Mhm.
Whereas the villain is the one where we have those, this are our frustrations. It's the person that we don't want to be, and when they lose, we sort of feel like, oh yeah, justice has been served or what. So this is all part of it, and this is how it starts to, affect the game, because you got to remember that not only is that on a personal aspect of it, that starts to become into the business side of things. This is, you see it in the promotions, and you see it in the promos, and the announcers, how they're talking about players. And while they're supposed to be objective as possible, you can tell that that they're really, a lot of the media and a lot of the broadcasts and stuff, and the organizations, they feed into that polarization, right? Because it sells. And that becomes important when we start to look at TV ratings and engagement from a social media standpoint. I mean, they're not taking the player that's sort of mid in between and
Yeah.
talking a lot about them. It's the ones that either somebody really loves or somebody really hates for whatever reason, right? Because that conflict sort of creates debate.
Mhm.
It gets people discussing, and they want to argue and they want to talk about it. I mean, if these didn't exist, I mean, think about sports radio, think about talk radio and things like that. I mean, that's part of what they're talking about a lot of the times, right? It's like whether it's right or not,
Yeah.
whether the characterization of a person is correct. And unfortunately, in this time of the world, with social media and so forth, we do have a lot of things that are not factual that get shared, and they tend to shape what we see. And it's easy to buy into it, because if we have a bias towards something, right? I love that player. Well, then, you're lapping up everything that supports that view. And if that player is a heel, we buy into everything that
Yeah.
supports that, sometimes without being objective and looking at it and going, oh, is that true or not? Or is it just someone's opinion that shapes it? Or is it based on, is it based on a rumor? Because rumors, again, that starts to be part of it. So again, this starts to be why we have this hero and villain narrative.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, and I think something else to look at too is how the hero and villain thing can define an era of a sport too. So not
Yeah,
just
very
not just
much.
golf, but we're talking about golf, and you can look back and say, okay, well, the heroes and villains of the 60s and 70s, or the heroes and villains of the 2000s, where,
Yeah.
the Arnold Palmer versus Jack Nicklaus, and,
Yeah.
I mean, I see it go here, the Fat Jack villain,
Yeah. Well, that's what he was. Yeah.
who dared to beat the king. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, Jack was pretty well liked, but
Well,
by
not
those
early
that were
on, though.
but
Not early on.
because he was dethroning
Correct.
Arnold Palmer, the king.
Right.
And same thing with Tiger Woods. I mean, Phil Mickelson was this sort of, lovable little, guy. Now, I was not a Phil Mickelson fan when he first came out. I thought he was a
Yeah.
little bit hoity-toity there with his flipped up collar and his fairway
Yeah.
blues and his no hat and all that stuff. I thought
Yeah.
it was just, I mean, I thought he was a goof. But and Tiger, yeah, he had his own persona. So, it's nowadays it's the traditionalist versus the defector. It's these eras have been defined. Live and PGA Tours define the era that we're in right now, and
Sure.
even more so now with the returning of some of these live players. And
Yeah.
so this is just I mean, I think this is just the way it is. Like, it just
Yeah,
is
it is.
always going to have this, and the fact that the fact that we can define these things by eras too, because we can go back and say,
Sure.
even in hockey or baseball,
Yeah.
there's always somebody versus somebody. It's not always the Yankees and the Red Sox, although
No.
that was probably the hero and villain. The big
Sure.
guy Yankees spend all the
Yeah.
money. The Red Sox,
Right.
and then there was the underdog Oakland A's back in the day that had no
Right.
budget, and
Yeah.
so it's the heroes and the villains, what we love and what we love to hate. So I guess
Yeah,
with that.
Yeah, it's that friction that really drives things along, and again, whether that's manufactured, from a PR standpoint or so forth, because we often find out things about people maybe afterwards or beforehand
that might have changed our opinion of them had we known that to begin with, instead of the narrative or the spin that the media and social media puts on everything.
Yeah, and then perceptions also change based on errors and perceived things that are accepted at the particular time. So sometimes we look back at something and we're like, oh, we freaked out about something at the time, but then something becomes the norm. I mean, I look at sports for an example, and we look at what's happened in the NCAA with NIL money. I mean, you go back in the day and, NCAA, I mean, basically you accept a dinner and, they're taking away your scholarship, or your Heisman Trophy or whatever. And then all of a sudden, the money comes along and the NIL stuff comes along, and then, have at it, take as much money as you want, right? With very little restriction. So, it depends the scope and the view that you have at that particular time, and that often affects players. And that's why when we said, sometimes players will change in our perception, and we'll talk about that as we talk about players, because I can remember this first player that we're going to talk about, that when he came along and was having a lot of success in Monday qualifiers, and he was getting into tournaments based on Monday qualifiers, and a lot of people were like, wow, this guy's really trucking along. And at sometimes people would like him, but then people started to find out other things about him, or rumors about them,
or
and
he'd
then
open his mouth.
That too, and then all of a sudden the perception changed. How a person obviously demonstrates their character by what they do will start to shape what people see. And the longer that they're exposed that way, the more likely you are to see what their real traits are.
Exactly. Okay. So even though we're looking at nowadays, we're looking at a whole live PGA Tour riff going on, we're not really focusing so much on just that side of things.
No.
But just to kind of preface things right here too, is right now the world of women's golf is very different. It's not the same kind of hero and villain sort of mindset, I guess, or defined lines. It's not as polarizing.
Yeah,
so we're going to focus on the men's side of things in this show, just because the lines are very defined.
Yeah.
There are some gray areas, but the lines are very defined as to
Oh,
who
for sure.
considered heroes and villains. And on the women's side, it's not. Although right now with the whole social media and stuff around Nelly Korda, for whatever reason, I don't know why everyone's latching on to something that I don't know. It's weird. There's a whole sort of social media thread going on about how Nelly Korda did this and that, and it's not even true. Like,
Yeah. Again.
I mean, being
Yeah.
in the golf media, we tend to have an understanding of some of these things that are put out there that they're clickbait for social media. We know they're not true.
Yeah.
So, I find myself anymore even with hockey when I'm following hockey stories where a hockey story will pop up and then I'll start going to ESPN and TSN and Sports Center and
Yep.
reputable sports websites or apps to see if they're posting anything about it, because if it were
Sure.
actually true, it would be there.
Yeah, that's why we need
And
trusted media, right? That's why we need
yeah,
trusted media,
100%.
especially now more than ever. Because again, it's just easy to create something that's not true and put it out there, and there's no consequences for it. So like you said, the women's game tends not to be as polarizing. That's not to say some people don't like some players
Yeah.
and like other players more, but as you said, it's a little bit more distinct when you deal with the men's game, probably because they get more media attention, so there is more discussion about this sort of differences
Yeah.
between the players.
Okay, so number one on our list of villains, we'll call
Yes, and
them.
and even though it's listed one, it's not a
Oh no,
ranking
it's number one.
for you. Again,
This is
perceived
so number one on the list of villains is
according to Jeff.
Patrick Reed.
Yeah.
We'll call him the ultimate heel.
Yeah.
If there's such a thing as Scott refers to him in the notes here, if there's such a thing as a Captain America of golf villains, it would be Reed.
Yeah.
He has been the primary antagonist over the last decade. And here's the thing with Patrick Reed. His reputation has sort of been plagued by allegations of cheating, and which he consistently denies. You can deny a lot of things and video also shows a lot of things. So you can deny
Sure.
some things all you want, but sometimes you can, what you're denying is you're denying it for yourself. The big thing for me with Patrick Reed is not the cheating allegations. It's the outright arrogance towards and you can look at it. Yes, people will say, is that arrogance or is it confidence? And that's all perception.
That's an opinion, yeah, for sure.
I see it as like arrogance, like just flat out arrogance. Like the things that he said early on in his career about
being
how
top
he
five
stood
in the
with
world and all that.
well, that's right now too. Like
Yeah.
that's we just recently come out and said, that because of his. Now look, I mean, he won on the DP World Tour.
I'm referring to a few years ago. When
Yeah. Well, I'm referring to just recently where he said he's
Yeah.
top five in the world. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
in your mind, maybe you're top five in the world, but you're not. But he came out early on in his career and thought he was better than Tiger Woods, wearing the red shirt and all that. It's like, to me, you're just either you actually don't realize what you're doing, or you do realize what you're doing and you're trying to create a character for yourself. It's like, I can handle being the villain. This is my way of getting people to focus on me. And he was wearing, I think he was wearing
the red shirt.
Wearing the red shirt. Was he wearing Nike at the time?
Yeah, he still is.
Yeah. So he's wearing red Nike shirt, black Nike pants, got the black, like the whole I'm Tiger Woods, but I'm not. And I'm as good as he is and all this. That sort of set the tone for him. And it's never let up for me. It's never changed. He's always been that person, always been that personified villain.
Yeah, and as you say, he seems to thrive on being the outsider.
He does.
He wants to be that outsider, and you've seen it, as you said, recently. The last 3 DP World Tour events, he's won 2 events and lost the other in a playoff. And despite that, you can still even though he's coming back, he's going to earn his status with the PGA Tour. He's going to come back to the PGA Tour. He still likes being the outsider, and as you said, that's his character. He's comfortable with that. Not everybody is comfortable with that,
No.
because most people want to be liked, but other people feel like, all right, I'd rather be a lightning rod in other ways. I'm confident in my ability, sometimes overly confident, obviously, and I'm happy to take on that attention, and have people have that feelings towards me. So, as a result of it, obviously it's created a lot of drama. We saw that with him and Rory in their match. And I mean, look, I'm not disrespecting his ability to play the game. I mean, he obviously can play the game. He's a great player, but he has chosen to be that villain character in most cases, despite the other things that he's done. This is not about, cheating allegations or whatever. This becomes more of, how he dives into it. And he's almost happy to be, or it seems that way, to be accused of those things and to kind of do his thing. And yeah, he wants to be the guy coming into town, with the black hat on, not the white hat.
100%. 100%.
And doing his thing. So as a result of it, that's his, you wonder, do you want to be on his PR team or not? But in this case, they know it draws attention. Whether that pushes away sponsors or helps, I guess it doesn't really matter if you're making enough money on the golf course. So,
well, the thing is, and we want to move on to other players too, but the thing is with Patrick Reed is like, yes, he's won 2 events and a playoff loss in his last 3 DP World Tour events. Now, I don't know what the field strength has been like in the DP World Tour events. It's been decent, but if he comes back to the PGA Tour and he has success, I mean, the guy can still golf. So it's not like he's not that good at golf. He still does well in majors when he plays in the majors.
Won a Masters.
So the guy can still golf. Game hasn't fallen off completely like some other people that are over on Live right now. So you got to give him his props for that. I sit here and say I wish he was just a little more humble, but it isn't his nature. It's not his persona. So if that's not who he is, and if he needs to have this confident arrogance that he has, he needs for people to hate him in order for him to be successful, to thrive off that, then maybe that's his fuel. So go for it. Simple as that. Okay, the next one on the list is Bryson DeChambeau. We'll call him the mad scientist.
Who's taken quite the arc in his career here.
Very much so. Now, he was always criticized for his slow play and his super scientific, technical approach to the game, his swing. Just so many weird things about Bryson DeChambeau, and they're weird because nobody else did it. I mean, probably the closest person to it was Phil Mickelson, and even Phil was, as far as the understanding the technical, he never came out and openly discussed the scientific and technical side of it the way Bryson is. No. Bryson has proved that everything that he's known for has led to the successes that he's had. Right. So the changes that he's made to his body, to his equipment, as crazy and weird as they are, he's had a lot of success on the PGA Tour and worldwide as a result of these things that he's done. So
he's created his own path and he's been willing to do that. But the issue for a lot of people is that most people are traditional by nature. So if somebody does anything that's an outlier from any type of aspect, be it equipment, golf swing, whatever,
it's bucking tradition.
It is bucking tradition. Now, to be fair, the way he's self-admitted it, that sometimes he was a little bit too intense. Maybe the way he treated rules officials, asked for certain, rulings, certain different things, maybe a little bit brash. And, he has said, and, if you follow his YouTube channel and has discussions about it, there's some times that he feels that he wasn't perceived correctly, but there's other times where he's admitted his mistakes as well. And, and what fed into that as well is that obviously he makes that jump to Live, to an alternate organization, which again goes against tradition, and we're not getting into a debate of one or the other. But what's happened though is that sort of buck the traditionalists a little bit more. But then all of a sudden he zips back around, starts getting involved with, YouTube, and people start to get to know him a little bit better. And it starts to humanize him, especially for younger fans who are paying attention to that. Maybe the other people are not. So again, we can start to see why the perceptions start to change based on media, PR, what you're seeing all the time, right? So, he disrupts it. He's obviously a little bit arrogant, but he's got talent, right? So the thing is that, we put him in the villain category because he sort of started it that way, but he's a little bit of a redemption story in some ways, because not everybody still loves him, right? Nope. And again, you pick your own side. It's not one or the other. You can't deny his ability, but some people will, make him a villain based on how he got there and what he has done, and other people will make him a hero because of what he's done now.
I think for someone like Bryson DeChambeau, he is the the epitome of the about face when it comes, for me, when it comes to the hero and villain. He was 100% the villain. In fact, actually, that's not true. He was, to me, he was kind of the hero when he first came out of the PGA Tour. He was rocking the cool hat. He was the really good player coming out of college. Yes, he was a little on the quirky side, but he was still a good player up until then, when he did this whole, a body, renovation, we'll call it, or body transformation, swing transformation, the equipment, it's just everything got weird. And that's when I started to kind of like, okay, this dude is just kind of out there. I don't know if I can get on the side with this. But
if somebody's not relatable, we tend to put them in a category that's not as comfortable for us, right?
So then when he did the about face and went to live, okay, now you're really on my bad side. But then he started doing more of this YouTube stuff and got involved in these 59 the break 50 challenges and the hitting balls over his roof of his house onto, like, all of this stuff. Like you said, it humanized him. It made him seem just more like this kind of fun going guy. He's doing all that to get likes and clicks and money, and it's all dollars and cents. But I think in some respects he was trying to repair his image a little bit, by getting more, by opening his world up to people to see who he really was, this fun guy. And for me, that sort of was the selling point. Then as he kind of came up when playing majors, I was kind of rooting for him when he was playing majors, even though he was on live, as opposed to everybody else that was coming over from live. I wasn't rooting for them. I was hoping that they missed every cut and just to prove a point. But for him, it was different.
And I think that's a unique examination of, and in this topic, how we perceive one or the other. And, did the person change, or is the person really the same? And is it just our perception that has changed? So, those are some of the kind of overarching questions that we see here in this topic.
Exactly. And I think, my own opinion, I think that we'll probably see DeChambeau come back over to the PGA Tour at some point. I know he's still on contract with LIV. I think he'll probably jump and come back over when his contract is over. But we'll see, because the PGA Tour has rules about YouTube and stuff like that too. So there's there's some issues that might have to be addressed there. Okay, so the next person we're going to get involved, I think we'll take a break, Scott, and because we want to leave ourselves don't want to get halfway into somebody here. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about a couple more. We'll try to push through them a little quicker, and then get into some of the heroes as well. Yes, the heroes. Maybe they're not. Maybe they are. All right. Stay with us. You're listening to and watching the Flagstick podcast with Jeff Botter and Scott McLeod.
When you golf on Prince Edward Island, there are over 400 fairways closer than you can imagine. Not to mention countless miles of pristine beaches and a rich world-class culinary experience. So get here fast, then take it slow and play around on Island Time. Golf Prince Edward Island.
All right, well, welcome back to the Flagstick podcast with Jeff Potter and Scott McLeod. We are here talking about heroes and villains in golf, and let's get the back nine rolling with a few more villains. So the back nine is presented by Falcon Ridge Golf Club. Indoor golf is in full swing at Falcon Ridge. Simulators are open 7 days a week, starting at 8 a.m. and shutting down around 11 p.m. They have 4 TrackMan simulators featuring over 400 golf courses, including many PGA Tour courses. They have beverages and light food available, so book your tee times on one of those 4 TrackMan sims at falconridgegolf.ca. Okay. So let's just kind of bang through a couple more villains and then we can move on to some heroes because we do want to talk about those too. So the next person we're going to talk about is Phil Mickelson. And you kind of dubbed this one the fallen hero. I think very much self-inflicted, with the jump to live being part of it, but then just the whole attitude and his disdain for the PGA Tour and rightfully or wrongfully, just so much negativity surrounding him. And, because he was very much until when he won the PGA Championship at Kiowa, he was loved. Like this guy, nobody wanted this guy to win that major more than the fans. The fans were all of this was just, and then it just, boop. It went away.
You're 51, you're winning a major, and obviously early in his career, people sort of dubbed him the Arnold Palmer. He was always the thumbs up guy and doing his thing,
smiling.
And he tended to be the the foil, I guess, in some cases for some people who didn't like Tiger at the time. They looked at Mickelson as being, the purist, the guy who came up and you mentioned obviously from a college standpoint, some people didn't like him because he seemed like the smarmy frat boy. But he was obviously talented, winning as an amateur on the PGA Tour. So this guy's gone back and forth with a lot of different things, and then things start to come out where, obviously as we head into the live aspect, he talked a little bit about, the Saudis, but then goes ahead and takes the money and runs over that way. So a lot of people looked at him as hypocritical, greedy. There was obviously longstanding rumors about, from books with, things about gambling and, obviously had some public spats with Jay Monahan, USGA. He's in that, US Open and goes ahead and, whacks a putt while it's still moving. He's just all those different things. So, people either went to one side or the other. They thought, oh, well, he's either right. And I see that right now. He was obviously been hypocritical of the tour. And then some people are going, well, it's because of Phil that the tour has changed and, players are making more money, and they should be grateful for him. Whereas other people are like, I don't need to see any more Phil. And then again, he's tried to kind of, we'll call it repair some things by starting to, do some YouTube things and stuff like that. But it hasn't taken off as much as other people. So and again, I say fallen hero, but it hasn't been a straight line. Ups and downs for him.
He's kind of bounced off a few rocks on the way down.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I agree with you 100% on Phil Mickelson. I didn't, like I said before, wasn't a big fan when he first came out, became a fan, liked the persona that he had, very happy-go-lucky, fans loved him, he was the people's champion. While Tiger was winning the majors and winning the tournaments, Phil was winning the hearts and minds of the fans. And so that was great. And it was good for golf at the time too.
Yeah, for sure.
But here we go. Sergio Garcia. A little bit, you call him the hothead. Definitely fiery, but that's kind of a Spaniard thing too. Because Seve was like that too, like very fiery, and John Rahm is very fiery. So I'm not gonna that side of it. Okay, the anger side of it with Sergio is kind of like the Phil thing. Came out, went head to head with Tiger. The whole leap, the big leap at the PGA, like all of that was, and that sort of started to define, okay, here's the guy, he's young kid, he's coming up, he's challenging Tiger. And then he had his issues. Then he had his issues with the regripping the club, kind of like where he's like, oh my, and people yelling, just hit the ball, and him having the quotes like when he went to go to live, getting overheard talking to a rules official saying, I can't wait to leave this tour, and you just there's always a microphone in your face when you're playing professional sports, so you've got to be careful of that stuff. But so the question, I guess, why is he a villain? As you indicated here, is perceived lack of maturity. I agree with that 100%. His respect for it's made him a big target. Like he just comes across as really immature,
And I have him on this side just more from a discussion. I'm not cementing him as one way or the other because, as you said, he comes out, does certain things. I've had personal interactions with Sergio that have been fantastic. He did a beautiful favor for my wife for a kindergarten related thing related to kids at the Riviera in 2015. So but again, it's like, okay, but it's a microcosm. You see him for a few seconds. That doesn't necessarily mean he's a good guy or a bad guy.
No.
But again, it's the same. You see someone come out and you perceive that if they're intense, is that a negative? Like in some cases, some people will look at that as a positive. But again, that's why he sort of comes in there. If he starts to do stuff like spitting in the hole and throwing clubs or whatever, that's a negative where people go, I wouldn't do that. I don't want to aspire to that. So again, they would throw him on the kind of the villain side, whereas other people would say, I've had great interactions with him. I don't perceive him that way.
The last person on this list, Patrick Cantlay. There's not a lot to talk about with Patrick Cantlay, but for him, it's kind of like the super slow play has always been an issue where fans get on his case. Other PGA Tour players are on his case about how slow he plays. The whole Hategate incident at the Ryder Cup with the hat and
the hat gate,
Yeah, sorry, I said Hategate, Hatgate.
It became Hategate.
I guess it is Hategate too. So there's little tiny things here and there with Patrick Cantlay. He's also just so like
he's just very tightly wound, right?
Really. I guess that's it. It's tightly wound.
And if you talk to other players, they want this guy on their team, right? Like he's clutch. But then, again, it becomes sort of a fan thing. And look, these players are not spending their time managing their reputations for stuff they can't control. They're just being who they are, right? But it becomes about a perception of why this person becomes this protagonist. And, is it justified? In some cases, maybe it isn't, just because they're just doing something we don't tend to like.
Exactly. So, on a sort of flip, before we move, this is the perfect one to flip things over on, is Brooks Koepka. I don't think Brooks Koepka is nor a villain nor a hero.
Right.
I think that Brooks Koepka is probably one of the more neutral PGA Tour players. He says and the things that I like about him are also the things that probably drive fans nuts. Right. He says it exactly like it is.
Yeah.
There's no filter. He's very
blunt.
Yeah, it's just boom. This is that whole thing where he's like doesn't find golf all that interesting to watch. Yet the PGA Tour is trying to get people to watch golf. Yeah. He's just the ultimate disruptor. His whole feud with Bryson DeChambeau when they were both on the tour, was it a feud or was it a social media filled, let's create these sort of Phil Tiger kind of deal. And that they actually liked each other the whole time, but just decided that, hey, we're going to play this sort of game with the fans. And he's got this sort of alpha dog kind of thing going on there, where he described winning majors, why it was easier than winning regular PGA Tour events, because you did this and you just got rid of these players, and then you're just left with these, and I feel like I can beat those guys. So that is the thing that I both love and don't love about Brooks Koepka, and I think that's why he's the perfect player on the fence here. You perceive him one way or the other.
Yeah, people want to do. yeah, people respect his talent, but they want him to be more humble and grateful. So I mean, but again, that's more a projection of ourselves rather than what he does. But as you said, it's the perfect flip to go over and start to talk to the people that I would lean currently on the hero side, as far as the, based on our current take, rather 100%. Than who knows where they could be in the future. If we re-examine this 5 years from now, all these people could be, villains.
Yeah, for sure. So right at the top of that list, as far as heroes right now, is Scottie Scheffler.
Yeah, for sure.
He's very soft-spoken.
Yeah.
Doesn't really say things to kind of disrupt or upset people too much. He's talking with his game.
Yep.
This past weekend is another perfect example of why people kind of like this guy. He goes out and he shoots 2 over 73 to start the tournament, and then next thing you know, he finishes 1 back.
Yeah.
It's like, and you knew it was coming. My son Brandon, 100%. I literally said he's going to be in the top 5 when this is all done. He might not win, but he's going to be challenging. He's going to be there, and he was.
Yeah, 17th top 10 in a row, which is the most since 1965.
So this is why we love we love this guy is because he's just not doing it. Even when the issue that happened with him getting thrown in jail.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, most people would have a negative perception of that.
And in reality, if you watch the video of the incident and stuff, he shouldn't have drove off. Like there's like
he gets that.
But
sure.
Didn't matter.
Yeah, because it really depends who it is in those situations, right?
If that's Patrick Reed doing the same thing, we're probably saying keep him in jail.
Yeah,
but not Scheffler. Scheffler, no. Well, how can you do that to Scottie Scheffler? Scottie Scheffler is the most wholesome guy in the world. He didn't do anything wrong.
No, it's exactly it. But sometimes being boring and putting yourself under the radar just makes you immune to that level of criticism or whatever. But as a result of it, it's like, okay, you just kind of go along flatline and you're the top dude, but you're not, you don't have this big ego.
Yeah, you're not acting like you're the top dude. You just are the top dude.
Yeah, he's got a healthy ego is what you'd call it. I mean, he obviously has to have confidence in himself or whatever, but yeah, and I guess that's why it's easier for people to kind of not have negativity towards him. So that's why he's sort of, on this side, he's probably the tops there right now. Whereas when we get to like Rory McIlroy,
well, let's talk about Rory.
Yeah. So, it's a guy that obviously, a little bit more emotional, has now got 29 PGA Tour wins. He's obviously got a career Grand Slam, which puts him sort of in the, that big hero category, even though some people are like, I don't like Rory because he's not afraid to talk about things and engage on topics. And, he self-admits sometimes he puts his foot in his mouth, right? But because he's so accomplished on the golf course and does things in such dramatic fashion, right? Which also lends into it when, a guy goes out there and bashes a drive 370 yards, we go, wow, I want to do that, which automatically ups him in the hero value category.
Yeah. I think that's the big thing with him is that he doesn't, unlike Scheffler, he doesn't keep his thoughts to himself. He speaks his mind. He's not as blunt as Koepka.
No.
But then Koepka doesn't speak on everything. So it's
or speak a lot.
Koepka is not, when Koepka speaks, he just says whatever he needs to say.
Right.
When Rory speaks, it's kind of like the guy that's political. He has an opinion about things. He says his opinion, and he puts himself out there publicly. He's the call him that, not so much the face of the PGA Tour right now, but he's sort of like the point of contact. Where he's involved in all of this stuff with the TGL. He's involved in all this stuff with the new PGA Tour. He's at the top and the forefront of all that communication. He's like the spokesperson and the guy that's right in the middle of organizing and developing these things.
That's a big crown to carry.
The massive burden for him to still be able to play golf at the level that he's playing at with all of this other stuff going on outside of golf. with all this other noise, that's another reason why, you look at him as a hero. I haven't always looked at Rory McIlroy as a hero type player. I haven't looked at him as a villain always either, but I've kind of felt at times he's a bit whiny. But and that he has felt like he sometimes has a need to be wanted, like he's very needy. And that's why he gets involved in this stuff, so that he can project himself as like, I'm the man. I'm at the top of the totem pole here. Well, listen to me. I'm standing on the soapbox. But I also see him as somebody who's trying to
He
make
cares.
the game better, and he cares about the game. Otherwise, he could have jumped to live and made $1 billion. Like, I mean,
Yep.
any of them could have, for that matter. But he could have,
Yeah.
and some people would have he just might have just vanished over there, and nobody would have cared. But he cares too much.
Yeah, and again, I think, when you listen to how he answers questions, I think that sort of helps him a little bit in some ways, because he does put thought into his answers. Whereas, we know in sports, we get a lot of cliches, a lot about athletes where they're very safe and they want to say the same words over and over again, where, as you said, he's not afraid to put himself out there. So that's helpful for them.
And that sometimes is why he puts his foot in his mouth too, is because he's trying to have an opinion, because he thinks he feels that people expect him to have an opinion,
and they do.
Yeah. So he has an opinion, and sometimes the opinion doesn't come across the right way, or it just goes the opposite direction of where he was hoping. But still, he's still a hero in my mind. Not my hero, but
but yes, he's obviously more on the positive spectrum.
Yes, exactly.
For many people.
So somebody who is not on the negative spectrum, who is 100% on the positive spectrum, and it is probably, probably the most liked guy on the PGA Tour by fans and players, is Tommy Fleetwood.
Yeah.
Was anybody on this planet not rooting for this guy to win a PGA Tour event?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there was a single person that was not hoping that he would win an event.
Yeah. And I think that sympathetic hero is, again, part of the whole negative. When you start to buy into the story and you want to see someone do well, it doesn't matter what sport it is. I mean, you can take an athlete in a certain sport that they played for 15 years and they haven't won the big trophy. You sort of buy into that narrative. But on the other side of it, this is a guy that's always, I think every player always loves getting paired with him, and the fans, he's thoughtful with the fans. He's always smiling, and I mean, it's just an easy person to root for. And I mean, when that happens, people don't tend to find negative. You can slam a club, once or twice, and no, it's not going to damage your reputation, right? And as you said, when he broke through and got that win, I mean, think about it. Even when he lost the playoff to Nick Taylor in the Canadian Open, there was people really, really torn, because especially Canadian golf fans were there and they're wanting that to happen, but they're like, oh man, why does it have to be Fleetwood that's gonna take the hit here? And for the fact that people were not rooting against Fleetwood that much that day, they were actually rooting for kind of both of them, but still hoping Nick Taylor would win. That tells a lot about what people think about him.
Yeah, 100%. I really feel like that's kind of exactly where things are at with a guy like Tommy Fleetwood. It's just you want him to win so badly that it doesn't matter if he's playing that he's up against your favorite golfer.
Right. Yep.
You still want him to do well. Oh, geez, could it be anybody else but Fleetwood right now? Because I kind of want him to win.
Yeah, exactly. And that makes him gold for people like sponsors as well.
Oh, absolutely. Anyway, I love the guy. Now, another guy who's sort of kind of in that same conversation, that same area is somebody like Ricky Fowler, who has long been a fan favorite. The young guy out there, he came out, the whole orange persona that he had, that whole image and reputation. The kids, all of the young golfers wanted to be Ricky. They all wore the orange, the Puma, and all that stuff. So, and that's where you can see that somebody becomes defined as a hero. Where other people want to be like that guy. especially the kids, especially the young teenagers and young kids especially young kids. I remember my own son,
Yes, exactly.
rocking the orange belt, and the orange had the Puma,
Or the white belt.
the white belt, the orange pants, the orange shorts, everything. Like that's
I think
the Ricky effect.
I think the fact he sort of stayed the same even when he struggled was really important. When his game wasn't up to what he wanted to, he still didn't change. He still signed autographs. He still treated the fans the same. He still had, kindness in the interviews. There wasn't many negative words coming out of him, and that built his fan base, and it cemented his fan base so that people would just obviously want to support him in big ways. And as you said, those kids that were following him early on are now young adults. They're forever going to have Ricky Fowler as a positive type of role model in golf for them.
And is that not ultimately what we're looking for as parents? That's what we're looking for from our sports celebrities
heroes.
is for them to be role models.
Yes.
Which we want our kids to emulate the way that they behave, so that our kids will strive to maybe become more like them. Because as much as we are our kids' heroes, our kids' heroes do come in the form of professional athletes.
Yeah, whether that's good or bad. I mean, we shouldn't use them that, but we'd hope that the ones that they do follow give them some sort of positivity.
Yes, absolutely. This guy is kind of like Jordan Spieth.
There's a relatability there. That's I think what people buy into with him.
It's the relatability of the game, the way his game goes, where it can go absolutely sideways in a hurry, and
mutters to himself just like a lot of golfers do, right? And always, there's the drama, whether it's the 12th at Augusta where all of a sudden you're dumping a ball in the water, but on the other time you're the conquering hero. And I think it's that that human roller coaster aspect of it that it just like, okay, all right, he's not a perfect golfer, he's not a robot.
No.
And again, some people might hear him muttering to himself and they perceive it as whiny. But other people are like, okay, well, that's how I am on the golf course, so I can relate.
Hey, nothing gave me more pleasure from a golf event than watching him win as Dustin Johnson was collapsing.
See, there you go.
Chambers
exactly.
Bay.
Yeah.
Dustin Johnson could have won that.
Sure.
But he didn't, and the guy that did win it was Jordan Spieth. So that was kind of like the
the hero. There's the hero villain narrative. Yeah, narrative.
That's a perfect, for me anyway. That's a perfect example of it. So I guess the last person on our list here is Max Homa. And this is an interesting one because Max is sort of he kind of rose to that hero status he was a fan first and a pro second. So very different, obviously outstanding talent,
of course,
as far as golfer goes, but he became famous. It's kind of like the opposite of Bryson DeChambeau, right? I mean, it's kind of the flip-flop. Bryson became more famous because of YouTube and social media after he began his PGA Tour career, whereas Homa became famous for his YouTube and social media and then backed it up by becoming one of the top 10 players in the world.
Yeah, I mean, he was coming up on the Corn Ferry Tour, and it was clear that if he became this big follower or a following on X on Twitter, because he reached out and said, "Hey, send me your golf swing," and he started roasting golf swings on Twitter, and as a result of it, he built up this following, and then people were like, they began to start to root for him because they're like, he's our guy, he interacts with us, he's not up on a pedestal, he's here with us, so we want him to have success. So as a result of it, it built that reputation, and because he was not afraid to kind of make fun of himself and share his own struggles with how it was to play the game at a professional level, that again, there's a relatability there, and then that makes people sort of feel joy that this player has success and gets to the top levels, but again is reachable more than anything.
I understand. And the thing with Max Homa too is that if you only see him play on the PGA Tour, it doesn't come up. He doesn't bring out that sort of funny side to him, like that lighter side to him. He comes across very serious.
Sure.
When you watch him just playing golf on TV.
Yeah.
You see a little bit more of that side of him with some of the TGL stuff.
Yeah. He can be himself.
Yeah. So if you hadn't seen his social media stuff beforehand and didn't know anything about that, and you just watch this guy in the PGA Tour, you'd think, okay, guy's a little bit Patrick Cantley-ish. Like, he's kind of, not very loosey-goosey.
Yeah, and I think other players are like that too, like Xander Schauffele, which we've obviously seen more. Like, guys on tour would talk about him being as one of the funniest guys. But
person to person, Xander Schauffele is pretty down to earth guy, pretty light, decent guy. So you don't always just watch what they, what they're like inside their office, because some guys use the lighthearted stuff as a way of just kind of relaxing on the golf course, and some guys dial into the serious. It's like once they're inside the ropes, they don't want to talk to you. It's business as usual, which brings us to our last our last player. Not really on the list because we're going to leave this one wide open. Hero or villain? Yes. Tiger Woods.
You got it. Yeah.
This is an interesting one because Tiger Woods really, like I said, with inside the ropes, Tiger Woods could come across as a bit of an ass. Like, when it came to being inside the ropes, it's like, I'm in my office, bugger off. I got business. Like, you walk in and it's like, stone cold. But that is how somebody like Tiger Woods had to get themselves into the moment. They didn't go down the fairway joking and laughing and tee-heeing with the guy, their playing partner, unless it was somebody who was a friend of theirs.
Or he was beating them by 25.
Yeah, and even that, for Tiger especially early on in his career, it was very, very serious and intense and locked in. But the dude won everything.
Yeah. So, and I think this becomes part of the issue, though, is when we start to talk about heroes and villains. I mean, here's a guy who obviously had massive success. And we talked about this earlier as far as, the perception of somebody and depending on, what they did, whether you could get past that. And Tiger is the ultimate when that. And people were like making a choice early on. Did you like Tiger? Did you not like Tiger? I mean, we obviously had to go past a number of different things or whatever, but people respected what he did on the golf course. But the moral dilemma became people starting to talk about what he was doing off the golf course when things were discovered, and realizing that despite the fact that he was a super successful once in a generation athlete, that obviously he had some personal flaws, and it depended how people perceived those that affected their opinion on whether this guy was still the biggest hero in the game or whether some villain aspect of it that was sort of hidden.
See, I don't know for me with Tiger Woods if I ever really perceived him as a villain. I never perceived Tiger Woods as much of a role model. That's fair. Not somebody that I would sit there with my kid and say, hey, you know what? If you're gonna if you ever get to this level of golf, or you get to this level of sport, or you get to, you need to look at this guy and how he acts and how he behaves and how he carries himself on and off the golf course. That's what you want to aspire to be like. That's not the guy that I'd be pointing to saying, watch that guy, be like that guy. Here's the thing, though.
Early on, a lot of people were, because their perception of what it was shaped by his intensity. And some people said, oh, I want that, to be that, whatever. But then, again, as a player is out
Mm-hmm.
there for longer, we start to see different aspects of them. And again, it depends what you value. And
Yeah.
obviously, if you don't value kind of how he treated people, how he acted, or whatever, you would have a more negative perception of him than a positive perception. So for some people, he's kind of the ultimate. And that's why you'd always get into discussions with people. They're like, oh, well, I don't like this, or I never like this. And I can remember distinctly as one golf pro that, held one player up. He didn't like Tiger, but he loved Phil. And it's like, I wonder now, because that person has passed a few years ago, what they would think now in 2026. Because again, this is all cyclical. Of our perceptions are based on a lot of different things. So I always wonder, would they think differently now in 2026 than they did, back years ago?
The only thing with Tiger, I look at the things personally in Tiger's life that he did that it came out that were not great.
Yeah.
But and I would not want to follow that path. I would not condone the behavior.
Sure. Yeah.
At the same time, professional athletes are human beings, and they do make mistakes in their personal lives that should not be translated to their professional lives as so easily, so transparently. I mean, I think that you're allowed to have a personal life, just like I can go to work and I can be the guy that I am at work, and I can go home and I can be a different person. I can, whether good or bad person at home or good or bad person at work, I can have those two lives. One does not have to translate directly to the other. They can be separate.
Sure.
Where they start to, the gray area starts to come is where what you do at work does mimic it kind of crosses the line. They start to merge together a little too much. And somebody like Phil, where you start bashing this and bashing that and using things in your professional life and then acting like it's okay in your personal life. Like that's the thing where the two, your negativity towards your job or your organization you work for, you criticize that, but then when you're at home, you're exactly the same way. And then that becomes hypocritical.
And I think that's a philosophical question for a lot of people, and not for us to make a determination on. It becomes of your own personal values of how you perceive that. The key thing within this one is the fact that can a person be so successful in their in their accomplishments that they can have indiscretions, and those would cripple some people.
Yes.
But they don't.
100%. You're right. You're right.
Because they're given a pass because of their success. And I think that can be an issue in a lot of things in society. And we're not talking just, kind of golf and stuff here. Whereas it's like, oh, people just give them a pass because they're famous or they're rich or they're whatever. So, again, that all leads into this hero and villain discussion. And what it really says in the end is that hero and villain is a construct based on what you perceive.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm not so sure really that Tiger was given a pass. In the media after the whole 9-iron incident happened and all of that, I'm not so sure that in that moment that Tiger was given a pass. I think that Tiger actually had to earn back the respect of his fan base, the golf community. I think he actually had to change who he was a little bit and correct it and earn it back. And then the injuries and coming back and winning, and I think he earned back that respect. And I think that that's where he's at now. Had he just kind of, that happened and just kind of, that's it, the career is over, you're just gonna, ride up into the sunset, I'm not so sure that he would have repaired his image by just disappearing. I think by owning it the way he did, whether it was directed by his media people or not at first, owning it and then making the correction and coming back and repairing the image, I think now he going forward will most likely just, it will be overlooked. Another 15 or 20 years from now, most people probably won't even be talking about that side of things anymore. But it could have went the other way real quick.
Sure.
If he hadn't owned it and dealt with it.
Yeah.
All right. That's
cool.
I like that. That was fun. Now, there's a whole bunch more guys we could be talking about that could fit on the heroes and villains, but we only try to squeeze everything into an hour if we can, so as not to run over. But that doesn't mean, you know what? If you're listening or watching and you want to send us your sort of top 5 on each side of that, go ahead and send it to us, and we'll kind of revisit this a little bit in another episode. Maybe next week we'll just say, hey, we had a lot of response, and here's what some other people think, and we'll talk about it a little bit, because it is kind of a, it's a personal thing, who you think the heroes and who you think the villains are. I think that you'll probably share some of our opinions on some people, but you might not share them all, and that's totally fine. All right, Scotty Mac. Good pod. Like it. Fun topic. Thank you. And thanks to our sponsors, Metcalfe Golf Club, Falcon Ridge Golf Club, and our presenting sponsor, of course, Golf PEI. Golf Prince Edward Island is a premier Canadian golf destination boasting the most number of golf courses per capita in the country. With over 400 fairways, closer than you imagine, top-tiered accommodations, and exquisite culinary experiences, it is the easiest golf vacation you will ever book. So go ahead and book it at golfpei.ca. We do hope that you've been enjoying watching and hearing what you've been seeing or listening to. Be sure to follow us across all of our social media networks, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. Subscribe to us on Audible, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. Do not forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, like us, and click the notification bell. Make sure you never miss a single episode of this podcast. And get on over to flagstick.com when you get a chance for more amazing golf content delivered every single day. Be sure to subscribe to the Flagstick Digest newsletter. It's delivered free of charge directly to your inbox 3 days a week, and there's a lot of good stuff that we put in there. But as always, we do appreciate you tuning in. Until next week, I'm Jeff Bonner.
I'm Scott McLeod.
Always remember, go for the stick.